In today's video, we are going to talk about habits, both bad, which make people suffer, and useful ones. I'd like to start with some positive things and challenge a stereotype connected with the word habit. After all, there are positive habits too. Which habits can be called good? What is their advantage? How can we develop them? Our brain is a machine which can be programmed. As a matter of fact, we have been programming it for the whole life. We do it either consciously or mostly unconsciously. In most cases, we aren't aware of such programming. It happens on its own, without our participation, because we live in a system which controls all the processes, and we don't take part in this control. We live in a social system where there are certain limits. We can't overcome, because society has the power of persuasion. We all live in a sort of a corridor. In addition to what happens within one's inner life, there are certain external forces that push a person in their direction. Such external influence on the brain, all the habits we are talking about now. And then it's quite difficult to retrain yourself, but retraining is necessary, and you will have to retrain. You'll have to make an effort and learn again. We don't have many things that we should possess. We are lacking these because our society has recalibrated us, so that to get control over the things we really need, we should get rid of the old stuff. One should make an effort and go over to new things. It is a lengthy process, though. For example, you want to change your old bad habits, which you don't need anymore, into new good habits. If you consciously apply a scientific attitude to this question, the whole process of changing will take you only 7 days. On the average, it takes 21 days. So the perfect example is 7 days, while the cutoff is 40 days. 40 days is an astral period. During 40 days, one can give up smoking forever. If a person doesn't have enough power of persuasion, he'll think he doesn't have enough will to quit smoking right away, so he'll drag on the process. But if he's working on himself, he'll have to wait for 40 days. During these 40 days, the program in his brain will be rewritten, as he has stopped smoking, but he should be convinced. Smoking is an evidently bad habit. But let's talk now about habits which are less evident. For example, there is a habit to respond to some or other events in the same way. As a result, such events repeat in one's life again and again, so that one could rewrite this undesirable and uncontrolled program. In such situations, a person talks and acts unconsciously, without controlling himself. His repetitive, uncontrolled reactions make him suffer and blame himself. Why does it happen? Because the subconscious mind has formed a certain scheme which makes a person react on the other's actions through the prism of stereotypes. As an example, body reactions. One records information in his subconsciousness, and this information comes into action. If something changes in the environment, the body responds. This is a record. It has been done through the neuronal recording. One has permitted such a recording to come to life. Therefore, to change bad habits into good ones, we have to undertake efforts. I recommend a very simple and effective way to do it. Take a piece of paper and divide it into 2 columns. In the left-hand column, write your bad habits, and in the right-hand column, write what you want to have instead. For example, if you write in the left-hand column, "I'm lazy," you should write on the right-hand side, "I'm strong-minded, I demonstrate willpower," and so on. Make a list of points in this way. Then burn the left-hand negative list away, and fully switch your attention to the right-hand list, to a kind of person you'd like to be. Now you should work out each of the points. You can either work out all the points together, or reread them regularly one by one and work out each point separately. You should do all of these in case you are not familiar with spiritual practices. If you do follow any spiritual discipline, then this way of working with your negative habits is necessary. Sadhana, spiritual practice, will harmonize everything itself. However, an ordinary mind needs to wipe out all the negative inclinations. So I recommend to substitute bad habits with good ones, fully switching your attention to the principle, now I'm doing what is good for me. Acting this way, you'll use the method of outwashing. As a result, old habits will gradually go away because you'll concentrate your attention on positive alternatives. It'll allow you to acquire new destiny. Why? Because when you substitute bad things with good ones, you take the process under your control. You'll be able to rise very high because you have chosen the best things and written them on your list. You've done it consciously, through the deep self-analysis. This raises a question. When a person is trying to get rid of bad habits, being sure that it is a simple matter, he usually fails. Do you mean that the method of substitution is more effective? If one is a determined person with strong motivation, then making an effort, he'll reach his aim easily. But there are people who don't feel the strength of will in themselves. They are not sure and say, I understand everything, but I feel that I won't be able to stop. Actually, these people don't really want to stop. If they really want, it will happen. Then they usually say, I need more time. Now we are talking about very simple things, but there are body reactions on subtler levels. The subtle levels can be rearranged during 7, 21, 40 days. This is easy to do if you are working with your subconscious mind. One can have a body reaction to some experience. Let it be a headache, for example. A person gets some information and body reaction appears. There can be two types of reactions. One goes through unpleasant experience because it is materialization of his karma. This person might be strong-willed and is able to go through it without anxiety, enduring it. Two, there can also be another reaction. If this person wants to get rid of pain, he should learn to dive into this pain and accept it fully. To endure it doesn't mean to accept it. Perseverance is a good quality, but acceptance is understanding that if something is going on now, it is necessary. You accept it and start getting absorbed in the feeling of pain. Then, beyond this pain, you find something different. In this way, you can recalibrate your subconsciousness. As I've already said, it is possible to do during 7 days. If you don't buy into the body reactions, you must say to yourself, my body consciousness will never influence me because I'm neither the body nor the mind. I can play and dabble in something. I can pretend that I'm doing this or that, but I'm neither this nor that. You can live in this world. Satya Sai Baba said, you take this life too seriously, too seriously. You see, life is a game. We play this game over and over again. What's the point of responding to all of these so emotionally? Why learn to suffer and make yourself suffering? Why not learn to be happy? Why not make yourself find joy in life? We should learn to find joy even in the most tragic moments of life because we understand that life is a game. If you are strongly convinced in this, your bad habits will melt, as they won't be necessary anymore. I see. Very often people who have bad habits aren't aware of big harm that these habits cause to them. They even get pleasure from their bad habits. Yes, you are right. For example, they like smoking or drinking alcohol, but their close ones suffer. This is a severe problem. How do you think we can help our close ones who have bad habits? How can we reach out to them so that to help them to give up? Lots of people are seeking my advice on this point. I usually ask them a simple question. How long have you been trying to help your close ones? Some people say they've been doing this for 1, 2, or 10 years. Others have been doing this for their whole life. Have you made a success, I ask. The standard is no. Don't you understand that you should stop it? Stop healing others. Leave them to themselves. Occupy yourself with yourself. First, you should reach out to yourself. You've just asked, how can we reach out to them? Or how can we help them to understand? But how can you do it if you don't have the understanding of yourself? A simple example, you're on a plane. If something goes wrong with a plane, you first put on an oxygen mask on yourself and then on your child. One would think you had to put on the mask on your child first because children must be saved. But to save the child, you should save yourself. People who have bad habits and can't control them are, in fact, like overgrown kids. They need to be saved. To save them, you should know how to do it. Besides, you have to develop your power of persuasion. Then your arguments will be feasible and weighty. You'll even be able to forbid your close one from following his bad habit, and he will obey. When you understand who you are, you'll be able to make it clear to your close ones. I mean that you should start with yourself. It's in the ideal case. If it doesn't work either, it means that your close one has very strong negative programs. He has a sort of demonic possession. In this case, he doesn't drink himself. He has been possessed by demons who are drinking in him. In simple words, it is hard alcohol addiction, isn't it? Yes, that's right. This person can't do without alcohol, and his family, his spouse, and children are suffering. Sure, without a doubt. But you should understand that it is not your close one himself who is drinking alcohol. There are demons who live on drinking through a person. What do you recommend? I recommend to start with your own self-development. If your close one has been keeping ground for years, you can choose one of two ways. One, place him in hospital where doctors will take care of him. Two, if he is living at home, stop being involved in his life and occupy yourself with your own self-improvement. As far as smoking and drug addiction are concerned, where is the borderline between bad habits and a serious disease? Both are kinds of addiction. There isn't any borderline. We can change one into another, but in fact, it is the same disease which is called ignorance and dependence. This is the lack of the Spirit's emanation. A person should have strength, conviction, determination, and credence to this determination. Besides, he should have a high aim. If he doesn't have a high aim, or having such aim doesn't pursue it, he starts consuming his energies in the form of negative actions. There's an enormous number of methods which offer a quick liquidation of bad habits. There are such things as acupuncture, coding for alcohol abuse, tablets, and different substitutes. Do you think these methods are effective? If one has broken both legs, he is given a pair of crutches. But giving him crutches, doctors usually say you should exercise your legs. You can be able to walk from the dining room to the kitchen, from the kitchen to the bathroom, and so on. But you should do exercises and train your legs to prevent muscle atrophy. Otherwise, your ligaments won't recover. Similarly, one can rely on acupuncture, for example. Every time he uses needles, his desire to smoke or to drink alcohol disappears for a while. Though it is a rare event, it sometimes takes place. But his attachment is still there because this negative program hasn't been executed. He hasn't worked the program out and hasn't raised above it. So by force of circumstances, his desire to smoke or to drink can happen again. There were lots of people who gave up smoking but then started again. I think those are free, who look at cigarettes without excitement. Such people can do whatever they want. The cigarette can lie in front of the person, but he doesn't want it because he is free. The same model can be applied to self-development. A lot of people know that self-development is necessary. It's right there, this knowledge, but there is something that deflects his attention from it. This something is usually an external influence. This something influences through the mind, through attachments, and emotional response to the old thoughts and programs. All these influences is the work of infernal forces. There are people who think that they are not attached to such bad habits, but at the same time, they sometimes follow these habits saying, I can agree to smoke or refuse it. I drink alcohol only on holidays, or even marijuana helps me relax. I can allow it myself once a week. What do you think of such an approach to bad habits? This approach masks one's reluctance to confess oneself a weak-willed person. Such people try to make up excuses for their smoking and drinking. In fact, they are still the addicts and need to work on themselves. There's no need to poison one's self-body, so that to have a chance to say, I'm free, so I permit it myself. That's not freedom. A free person is someone who doesn't think about smoking and drinking at all.